So here we are going into Hanukkah, and tonight's the first night. I think all of us are feeling a special energy in the air compared to other years. Why it is that this year feels different, I believe, is because there's this positivity in the air. I don't think it's just the fact that Trump was reelected. I think that if you're Jewish, and now we've got this like entire new Middle East happening. But all of this to me started Sukkot time. I don't know if raise your hand if you were here Sukkot time. Anyone was here Sukkot time? Did you notice that like there was an energy in the air that was like crazy? Like I've been here, that was my 33rd Sukkot here. And I've never felt the energy like that before. And I kept getting clips of like all kinds of situations, whether they were Hasidic situations or there were the there was a knitted kippah situation, like the Dati Lumi Chevra. But there were like thousands of them, and they were dancing their hearts out with lulavs and estrogs, like mamish with their lulav and estrog, dancing and dancing and dancing and dancing. I have this clip. You could feel like something's happening. And then I get a clip showing people on the Temple Mount, like face down, hands forward, feet out, like flat on their faces on the Temple Mount. I mean, there were police just to watch Jews' lips to make sure they don't pray. And if they prayed, they would get arrested. But during Sukkot, people were going up on the Temple Mount, hopefully in permitted places, because some areas are permitted, and they were flat out, one after the other, like no one was stopping them. And it feels like even the state of Israel, which has been no friend to Judaism in many ways, I mean, obviously friendly in other ways, but even the state of Israel seems to be getting like Jerusalem fever, They're getting like Jerusalem syndrome a little bit. Anyway, I think something exciting's in the air. And Hanukkah is the ultimate excitement, and that's what we're going to focus on. Today, what we're going to work on is very not politically correct, so I hope anyone watching this understands I'm not here to offend anybody. And I came to heal, not to harm, and to love, and not to hate, and to make peace and not war. That's what I'm here for. However, there is something that all of us need to get real clear, and it's from King David. And we say it every Kabbalat Shabbat, and that's Ohavei Hashem Sinu Ra. Those who love God must hate evil. Those who love God must hate evil. There's no neutrality when it comes to evil. You have to hate it with a consummate hatred. Ohavei Hashem Sinu Ra. If you say you love Hashem, but you're neutral when it comes to the things that the Torah clearly describes as forbidden, as the dark side, as evil, if you're neutral about that, if you have like liberal positions about like live and let live, or free to be you and me, or like I'm doing my thing, you do your thing, and everyone does their own thing, and seeing Judaism as one of the world's religions, even. That's wrong. Judaism's number one, not a religion, and it's not one of a group. We're not one of a group. Okay, we're a sheep surrounded by 70 wolves, and some of those wolves, are religious wolves, but we are not religious people at all. And you'll just notice that even the people in this room, would you ever consider yourself a religious person? Meaning the way Gentiles consider someone religious. You're a religious man. Oh, you're a very religious man. You're not. And I'm like extremely not. What is a religious person? What does it even mean to be a religious person? I don't even, I'm personally, I don't think I could even define what that means, but it's certainly not me. It's none of the Jews I know. My goodness, the Jews I know are wild and crazy, and they're also very, very, just they're into God and doing the right thing, but religion. Now, I know this sounds a little weird, so maybe we should define religion. Religion means when you wish something were true and then you kind of align your life around it. Whereas Judaism isn't like some wish, like some fantasy wish that something, were true. It's not that at all. And you can actually test whether or not there's a God. You can test whether or not the Torah is man-written or God-written. You can test the actual, literally, like Ben Achar Ben, son after son, from Mount Sinai all the way to 2024 of everyone sitting in this room. Like we literally have our families lined up. And my family goes back, like our family tree goes back, like all of our family's trees go back thousands of years. Now you may not be able to name your great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather, but I promise you that your great-grandfather, who you probably could name his great-grandfather, who could name his great-grandfather, who could name his great-grandfather, who could name, and it just goes all the way back till you're at the destruction of the Second Temple when we got thrown out into Europe, and meaning the Ashkenazim got thrown into Europe, and the Sephardim obviously to other countries, but we're a direct line of that. We're not religious people who wish something were true. And that's why you'll notice in the evening prayers, after Shema, we say, Ve'emunah kol zois. Ve'emunah kol zot. What does it mean? And this is all our faith. And then it has 2 dots, which is a colon. And it's a long paragraph about our history. What's our emunah? Our emunah is our history. What's the emunah of religion? It's the belief that some guy heard something in a cave. Or it's the belief that, someone did X, Y, or Z. And now he's the new prophet or whatever. You understand? Whereas we're just saying we were 3 million people at Mount Sinai. 600,000 men between the ages of 20 and 60. And when you include the elderly, the females, and the children, you're at 3 million. 3 million people stood at a mountain. You can't make that kind of stuff up. It was only a few hundred years later that Israel's living in the land with King David. We have his coins. We have stuff no one denies King David's rule. No one denies the period of Israel. And yet it's a full Israel with full Judaism going on at that time. And it's only a couple hundred years after Mount Sinai. How do you fake that? How do you get something like that going? Because you can't tell everyone they were there if they weren't. And they'll just say, let me ask my Uncle Joe. Let me ask my Aunt Edna. Were they there? And so the Torah should never have said everyone was there if it's a religion, because you could easily just say we weren't. I can't tell you I saw you in the supermarket in Tel Aviv yesterday, because you weren't. And you just say, I wasn't. And now just add people, it only gets worse. Not only I see you, I saw all of you there. You'd be like, no, you didn't. Well, what if we had the room with 100 people, and I say, okay, it wasn't you, it was your grandparents, or your great-grandparents, your great-great-grandparents, your great-great-great-grandparents, however many it would take to get to King David's time in Israel. What would you do? You'd go home and say, Grandpa, or great-grandpa, do you know anything about being in the market in Tel Aviv yesterday? Or do you know anything about us being in some other place with a gigantic THX surround sound OmniMax 3D LSD blow-away experience at Mount Sinai? Like, you ever heard of that? And they would be like, we don't know what you're talking about. That's what would have happened. If the Torah was made up, it's not possible that anyone could have come to the people. I don't know who the people would be, but they come up to the people and say, "Hi, you're the people." Is he speaking to a group? Is he speaking to an individual? And he walks up to you, Shmuley. "Hi, I don't know if you know this, but you're part of this 3 million group of people." You'd be like, "What are you talking about? You know, I'm a pagan sheep herder, you know." And who was the person he would come up to explain that he's the ancestor, the descendant of 3 million people? It's cuckoo. There's only one way you could have such a claim as if it happened. And no one would put that claim unless it happened. Because people would just laugh you they would just laugh you away. Not to mention, when you go into the actual commandments and you start seeing genocidal commandments. Do you know that there's genocidal commandments in the Torah? I'm not talking about wiping out Amalek. I'm talking about wiping out Israel. What? Yeah, wiping out Amalek, wiping out the Canaanite nations. Meaning you were to offer them peace, that they could leave peacefully. Or they could take on the seven commandments of the children of Noah and stay in the land, or not one man, woman, or child will be left alive. Lo sichya kol neshuma. Not one person can be left alive. Those are the three options. They can leave peacefully, they can stay and keep the 7 mitzvahs b'nei Noach, or not one man, woman, child, grandma, or grandpa will be living, because the Jews are going to wipe them out. But no, I'm talking about Genesis. We have commandments that kill Israel, kill the Jews. You know what commandment kills the Jews? The sabbatical year. It's absolutely forbidden to gain your sustenance from the earth every 7th year. If a man was writing the book, if I were writing the book, I'd leave that one out. Why would I put that in there? Now, the Torah says the reason it's in there is because if the land's busy working every Shabbos, well, if you add 6 years of Shabbos, it equals 1 year of the land resting, because the land is, even though we all think of the earth, as just land, but the earth also has a soul. If it's the land of Israel, the land of Israel has its own soul, and the fact that it doesn't get to rest 6 years means it gets a year of rest at the end of 6 years. You ever thought about that? Yeah, that's why it's crazy. It says, and what's the punishment of not keeping this rule? The punishment of not keeping the rule, it says very clearly in Torah, the land will spit you out. The land will eject you. We are the only country in the world with an eject button. Okay? We're the only country in the world we're the only land in the world that has a digestive system. It either absorbs the Jew, and you become the land, right? Because when you assimilate an apple, the apple becomes you. When you assimilate a piece of chicken, the chicken becomes the Jew. The land of Israel absorbs us. It actually digests us. And then you become the land of Israel. And have you guys noticed since you've been living here that you're becoming like more and more Eretz Yisrael, Dick? Yeah, anyone visited the U.S. and said, like, what in the world's going on out here? Meaning visited Jewish communities, and you're like, what are these people up to? You hear what I'm saying? That's religious Judaism, by the way. Religious Judaism is being an observant Jew outside of Israel. Then you're a religious Jew. Here in the land, when you're in the land of Israel, you are in an organic dance. You're in an organic dance with Torah and mitzvahs and tefillah and avoda and chesed and you're in a Eretz Yisrael Yid. I once saw a guy in LA who's a Yerushalayim guy, and I was teaching at UCLA for a few months. I was a young Avrech, and I was teaching at UCLA. My wife and I were doing our best to make Shabbos tables at the university and stuff. Anyway, this French Jew, oh man, what's his name? He passed away. He's a famous movie writer and stuff. I don't know why his son's name's Sachi. Whatever, he's a famous guy. I don't know, his name popped out of my head. Anyway, I ran into him, and you know what he says? Yom Tov, what are you doing here? And I said, well, I'm actually doing a little outreach at UCLA. And he's like, no, Yom Tov, in Jerusalem, you are like a prince. Here you are nobody. And I was just like, oh, man. You know, back to the campus, another big Shabbos table. But I do believe that if a Jew does leave the land to go do outreach, he's paying dues. You know, you're paying some dues there. And I had to pay some dues out there. And Baruch Hashem Makard, a lot of people who are observant today. But and by the way, leaving the land of Israel is forbidden. Did you guys know that? You're not allowed to leave here. Meaning once you get digested, you can't induce vomiting. You understand? Once you get digested, there's no inducing vomiting. You're in. That's it. That's it. And the Torah actually only allows three reasons why you're allowed to leave Israel, and there's kind of a fourth as well. The three reasons you're allowed to leave Israel is, and we learn them from the Avos. One is if there's a famine, meaning you can't make a living, you're going to die here. Okay, you can leave. Another is that you need to get married. We know from the Avos that they found their wives in Syria, so you're allowed to leave for a wife. You know, although Yitzchak wasn't allowed to leave, which is already a simon for some of us. And the third reason you're allowed to leave is for getting a teacher, which is one I never understood that one. I should give the real third one. The real third one is Pidyon Shivuin, is you're allowed to go out of land to redeem someone who had been kidnapped. If a Jew gets kidnapped outside the land, you're allowed to go outside the land to redeem that kidnapped person. And then there's like a mandamra that for your learning, like if there's a teacher who could teach you Torah in a way that no one else could, you could leave the land for that. Clear? Now, what happens if you don't have any of those? What happens if, number one was a lack of food? Israel's like teaching the whole world agriculture today, like our technologies in making food. No one can touch us in that. We're literally like feeding the planet at this point with our technologies. And number two, finding a wife. I never seen so many Jewish women in my life. They're everywhere. Number three is the leaving for Pidyon Shavuin for kidnapped Jews. Yeah, you can leave for that, but you know the only kidnapped Jews we got right now are in Gaza right now. May they be returned soon. And finding a rabbi who could teach you Torah, I would suggest coming to Israel for that. If you want to find a rabbi who could teach you the Torah, and you're unique in the way you would learn it, so you need that unique rabbi. I think it's a 99% chance that he's already in Israel, whoever that guy is. You know, he's somewhere in the land of Israel. Meaning you can't leave here anymore. Therefore, all of us who do get on planes to go, which includes me, I'm out of the country every couple of weeks. Baruch Hashem, I get to be here for 2 months, which I'm so excited about. And I'm running a Possible Use seminar here in Jerusalem, January something. I think it's January 7th. I'm not sure. But I think it's the 7th, which is really exciting. And I should be having well, I'm not going to announce that. I'm so ADHD, saying way too much. I remember once I needed information from somebody, and it was some kind of based-in case, and they bring me in to get information out of people sometimes. So I need that information, but I'm not just going to call a guy. I got to do some background and find out like what's going to be my angle to get the information. So I called this first guy. I said, "Can you give me some information about this guy? Because I need to extract some information for based-in." And he was like, "Oh, he's ADHD. He'll tell you everything." He said, "You need nothing. Just call him and ask him whatever you want." And he was right. 2 hours later, I'm just like, I got him on speakerphone, writing out everything he wasn't supposed to say, you know, to give me all kinds of background information to take care of a little justice that was necessary. But I'm also like announcing stuff I shouldn't be announcing, so I cut it right there. the next thing, by the way, I'm great at secrets. My own secrets, I'm not so great at. I'm from California, you know. In California, you just say everything about yourself. What's up, guys? Welcome. Can you guys make a second row on either side of Benny over there? Because, yeah, the closer the camera, closer in towards this camera, meaning as far as latitude. Yeah. Oh my gosh. We're talking about so many things at once. So, but here's the thing, guys. Yeah, that's a good spot right there. So here's the thing is, we're talking about you're never allowed to leave Israel. Yeah, no leaving Israel. Is that clear?
Yes.
Yeah. So we're never allowed to leave this place, and you have a phone call you need to go.
Like with a permanent intention, or just?
No, you're not allowed to leave for any intention because you're not allowed to induce vomiting. Israel's the only country in the world that has a digestive system. And so you're not allowed to just throw yourself out. So, so here's what I want to say is for those of us who do have to leave, because some of us go. Yeah, I go all the time. I'm outside the country all the time. So when you leave the country, you have to bring somebody, like some random Jew, closer to Judaism. So let's say you're going for a wedding, family wedding, or you're going for whatever reason. You're going for Pesach, you know. And meanwhile, everyone you see already keeps Torah. So you can't be going for them. Because there's of the three reasons you're allowed to leave Israel, one of them is to return a captive prisoner. Well, Judaism tells us that someone who was raised without Torah, a Jew raised by a family that didn't teach him Torah, is the same as someone being born into captivity. I mean, we exist in where are you right now? You're existing in your own conscious experience, right? But your guy's conscious experience is completely embedded in the Torah view. It's like you understand? So there's a freedom there. There's a freedom there. You're in you may not feel so free right now, but you are in a very free place. Because I promise you, if you were raised non-observant, and you are right now in your non-observant life, you don't know Aleph Bet, you don't know there's a God, you don't know Torah is real, you don't know any of that, you're completely in prison. You're in jail. And by you saying a good word to someone or inviting them to a Shabbos table or getting them started with a book or something when you're visiting America, by you doing that, you have made it that you didn't spit yourself out of the land. Got it? So I have big reasons to leave Israel every time I leave. Big reasons to leave. But they're never the big three, which are the ones you're allowed to leave for. So I always make sure when I'm outside the country to reach out to somebody. So I'll be in New York or something, and someone will say, hey, can you pop by this place and speak to a group of Jews over there? Or whatever, or hey, can you come out with lunch with me and my cousin? I have a cousin who was raised non-observant. I know you're busy, you know, and I'm just like, I'll be there. And so I make sure I go for that, no matter how busy I am. If someone offered that, that's the only reason I could be outside of Israel is to have lunch with him and his cousin. That was it, you know. My wife flew for Thanksgiving to be with her family. You know, we were not raised observant, so. She flew for Thanksgiving, where all her secular family is. And she knows, like, yes, we're coming for Thanksgiving. Is one of the hetters of leaving Israel to go for Thanksgiving? No. But if you go there and you talk Torah with your family, that works. Now, what we're talking about here is the consummate hatred of evil. Which is kind of interesting because if King David's saying that to love Hashem means to hate evil, not at all progressive, not liberal, not you gotta hate it. You gotta hate evil. Not only that, Abraham. What's Abraham known for? Which character trait? Chesed, right? Except guess what? Abraham's actual original character trait is not chesed. It's not kindness. It's not hate. It's worse. It's worse than hate. It's hate's its expression, but it's actually maybe the root of it is it's rage, Haron, which is hinted at by the fact that he came from Haran, which is the word rage. Abraham's actual attribute's rage. That's his true attribute. Now, tell me, how effective would Abraham have been as this outraged guy? What would you do if you came to a tent of a guy who's outraged? Well, I would run the other way. So Abraham was smart, and he said, I'm totally outraged, and here comes some idolaters. What if I just take all that rage and just channel it into kindness? What if I channel it into kindness? I'll share with you a little story. I was once walking home from Carlene, Shabbos day, with one of my neighbors who lives right behind this building, and he always screams Shabbos at the cars when we walk by. So I always know when I walk with him that every conversation will be peppered with a small interruption when a car would drive by, and he would have this blood-curdling scream. I mean, you can see veins popping out of his forehead. Yeah. This guy's not a Carliner, he's a neighbor. And his neck's swelling as he screams, Chavez! Shaking his fists at the car. Meanwhile, the car is, all you hear in the car is just boom, boom, boom. It's winter, the windows are closed. He's going down the road, boom, 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 boom. But, he's doing his mitzvah, Shabbat. Anyway, over the years, he finally said to me when we got to our neighborhood, he said, Yom Tov, I know that your rage over people not keeping Shabbos is way bigger than mine. And I happen to know that too, but it was amazing. This guy chopped it. He said, your rage is much bigger than mine. Can you sit on Benny's side over there? Yeah, right there. Just pull that chair. Or Benny, slide over a bit this way. Just so he has room. Your rage is much bigger than mine. There's a guy screaming Shabbos at the cars, said that my rage is bigger than his. I never scream Shabbos at cars. If anything, if the window's open, I'll try to get them to come for Kiddush. But I said, oh yeah, why is my rage bigger than yours? He says, I could never do the kiruv you do. It's just not my style. I could never do kiruv. So I express my rage over them breaking Shabbos by screaming Shabbos. I know that every time you get to your table, you got 10, 15, 20 guests, all who were not raised observant. You're spending hundreds of dollars per meal to feed these people and to explain to them Torah and explain to them Shabbos, etc. And because that's the right way of using your rage. And he couldn't be more right. He couldn't be more right. People who are serious outreach personalities we are outraged. We are outraged. We're coming up to Hanukkah tonight. You have to be outraged. How did a little group of Kohanim who have no business in war, we're not sending Kohanim into war, how could a little group of Kohanic scholars, priestly scholars, throw a full revolution against the already succeeding Greeks who they already have idols in our Holy of Holies in Jerusalem, meaning we were done. There was nothing left of us. They couldn't drum up any motivation in the Jewish people to even think to fight back. There was no one left who wasn't thinking in Greek terms. Well, it's no wonder it was them, though. If there was anyone to create the revolution, it would have been the ones who are the holiest, because the holier you are, the more outraged. How do you express your outrage? Express your outrage in, whatever's effective. In this case, what was effective was war. The effective way to deal with being outraged is war. In the case of having been completely consumed by the Greek people. So this is what I want to say going into our first candle of Hanukkah tonight, is all of us should, what's that? Yeah, oh yeah, good morning, yeah. Yeah, you got to get your Hanukkah maybe worked out a little bit. Get your menorah worked out. But I think all of us need to do a little inward thinking right now on where are we in a more liberal place in our hearts about like live and let live and I'm okay, you're okay, and free to be me, you and me, and you know, to each his own, all these sayings that just like, bah, you know, it's like all of that, that's the Western civilization today. The stone, which is the Jewish people, that the builders hated. Who are the builders? The builders are the Westerners, the Western civilization, the Americans, the Europeans, the Romans, the Greeks. They're the builders. What do? They just build. And they come to a beautiful place and they're like, build, you know. We come to a beautiful place and we're like, wow, look how gorgeous. Like, you can like feel Hashem's presence here in these forests and the lakes and the waterfalls. Like, wow, this is gorgeous. You know, when the Westerners met the Indians in New York and they wanted to buy Manhattan from the Indians there. And the Indians were like, you want to buy land? Like, you think you can own land? And they're like, yeah, we think you can own land. They're like, no, we belong to the land. The land owns us, because the tradition of the natives was you come from the earth, you go to the earth, like, you know, where the land owns us, where we belong to the land. What was that great song from the Indian tradition? You have come to move me, take me from my ancient home, land of my fathers, I can't leave you now. We will share it with you. No man owns this earth we're on. Now the wheels are now the wheels are rolling. Hear them howling winds of war. It's my destiny to fight and die. Because they knew they were going to die. Is there no solution? Can we find no other way? Lord, let me stay. And now the endless sky and the earth below. Here I was born to live, and I will never go home. Anyway, whenever I hear those words, I always think of us. Too bad I'm wearing a lapel mic because there's a chauffeur blast going on outside. Probably couldn't hear it. I think they bought Manhattan for like $25. Anyone know what the price was?
$24 in glass beads.
$24 and
In glass beads.
in glass beads. Really?
Something like that, yeah.
And I mean, think how much Manhattan's worth today. So why are we even talking about this? We're in the middle of preparing for the first candle. What?
Builders as opposed to...
Builders, yeah, Evan Maso Aboinim. So in Psalms, in Tehillim, and we'll be saying it during Hallel every day. Evan Maso Aboinim. the Jewish people throughout all of history, or at least Western history, because the Westerners are the builders. They're the builders. And we were the stone that they just like can't find where it fits in the walls and get these people out of here. You understand? Like, to me, the most amazing day one of the most amazing days of my lifetime was October 8th. October 8th was an amazing day because I never for a second think that the Gentiles don't hate us. I never for a second think that we're anything but a wolf. I'll never for a second think that we're anything but a sheep surrounded by 70 wolves. There are a lot of wolves in sheep's clothing. I'll leave them nameless. There's a lot of wolves in sheep's clothing. And even if they want to say they love us, they love Israel, and I see teeth coming out of a little sheep mask, you know. And what? Yeah. I mean, with the exception of those who have done the deeper work, there are those who've done some deep work and they get who we are. Meaning they've really gone to the bottom of the barrel of the vibrational tribal significance of who the Jewish people are. Like they got it. There are people like that. They're usually individuals. As soon as it's a group, there's some other agenda. If it's a group of people like that, smell a skunk. Smell a skunk. So October 8th was an amazing confirmation for me. Meaning while the rest of the world was like, oh my gosh, like, is that an actual protest in honor of this genocidal death cult called Palestinians? Like, is that an actual protest in honor of them, not the Jews who just had the massacre and they're still massacring people over the next few days? Like, they're not saying death to Zionists at the Opera House in Australia, the place that represents Western culture. Opera House is the Western culture, and the Opera House is the famous architectural marvel of Australia. And it's like, no, they weren't saying death to Zionists. You know what they were saying? The protest was screaming, gas the Jews. The day after the massacre, gas the Jews. So to me, that day was an amazing day. It's like, why don't we all just like take off our costumes and be real? And this is why, you know, when it says never forget, what does it mean never forget? I mean, the whole Holocaust thing was never forget. What does it never forget? Never forget that they're never going to forget who you are. Never forget they're going to hate this stone because there's nowhere it fits in their building. You understand? It just, no matter every angle they try to place it, it just doesn't fit there. It's not part of their building. They're the builders. Westernism is builders. They're from Yafet. Yafet's an expander. Well, how do you expand? Well, just keep building out. But eventually you got to start building up because you run out of room. It's the end of Manhattan Island. You know, you can only go up, which is why Manhattan's probably the tallest city in the world. The builders. But there's one rock that they just can't place. They can't place that one rock. You know what that rock will be at the end of days? The cornerstone, the Rosh Pina. What's the cornerstone? Cornerstone is what holds up the whole damn thing. Because if you look at an arch, you know, the arch comes around and, you know, when it gets near the top, you know, when it gets right near the top, you put in that cornerstone, and that cornerstone up at the top holds the whole arch together. Everything's leaning into the cornerstone. It is the foundation of the whole thing. Once you put that cornerstone in, then you can take down all the scaffolding and all the braces and everything that was holding the arch just by, you know, having that cornerstone in there. And the cornerstone is what's holding up the entire world. But the thing is, the cornerstone's holding up the entire world all the time. All the time. And that's why I was, oh wait, one more thing, keep your question, is that, because you had asked before, that there are Gentiles out there who know who the cornerstone is. Meaning people who've done like deep work, they know who the cornerstone is. And we're the cornerstone all the time. The stone that the builders hated has become the cornerstone, which will be the end of days. You know, you don't think for a second that God is not going to fulfill the prophecies, that we're going to rise up to be the clear cornerstone of the creation. God's not going to negate those. All negative prophecies, negative ones like you shall not do this or else, those don't have to happen. Because we can do tshuva, we can God doesn't have to fulfill those. But anything God says will happen, has to happen. And the fact that we're going to rise up again, as you know, that Esav will fall, Esav's the West, that Westernism will go down. Because remember, Jacob and Esav, we can't be up at the same time. It's a polarity. Either Westernism's up and the Jews are down, even though we're the secret cornerstone, or the Jews are up, actually being the cornerstone. So until we light tonight, let us all go deep into our hearts and say to ourselves, where's my rage? Let's say to ourselves, where's my unfounded liberalism? By the way, I'm an extremely liberal person. Like, in my own personal temperament, I'm probably the most liberal person in this room. Because I can outdo anyone in liberalism, which is why I've reached out to so many people all around the world, is because people know right away I accept them. I don't approve necessarily of their behavior, but I accept them 100%. Because I have such a liberal temperament, I get that anyone even doing the wrong thing thinks he's doing the right thing at that moment. You understand? I'm very liberal like that. He's doing the wrong thing. I don't approve at all of what he's up to.
How do you balance that?
Approval and acceptance? You don't have to. You shouldn't, actually. You should have high standards of approval, high standards of meaning your own approval, your own personal behavior. Obviously, for your spouse, you're in charge of that as well, and your children. So a high standard of approval. Also, if you're in a community, like, and someone's like messing up the community by introducing standards that are not what everyone moved there for, you have to stand up and say something. You cannot sit down and watch your property value just tank because you're afraid to stand up for your community. You must stand up. And it's not just property value, meaning the whole value system is getting lost. It's just that you'll see what happens to the property value a little later. I just try to scare people more about their own pocketbook, because it will be affecting your property value if you don't stand up when someone's taking your community down. And the high standards of approval, but your acceptance level, like accepting an actual human being for who they are, not what they do, because approval is based on behavior, it's what they do. Whereas acceptance is who they are. You understand? I don't know what you do during the week. I have no idea what any of you do. But I know for sure if I were you, I'd probably be doing the same thing. So I 100% accept you. I'm glad I'm me. I'm me and I do something else. But if I were you, I'd be doing that. So I realize that the doing is some expression of some being, and if the doing's off, probably the being's off. I'll give you an example. If someone believes that they're the holiest person in the world, what's his doing going to look like? I don't mean holy compared to others. I mean, he just feels so holy. If someone feels so holy, what's his doing going to look like? His doing is going to look like, it'll probably look a lot like Shulchan Aruch. You know, what the Jewish law says you should be doing. That's what his doing is going to look like. But what about a person who believes he's a shegitz? What about a person who believes he's just a piece of garbage? What's his doing going to look like? What will his doing look like? It'll probably be junk food eating, because doing you can video, right? Can you video being? No, can't video being. But the guy feels like a piece of garbage. So you'll probably notice he's easily coaxed into eating junk food. He likely smokes, probably abuses other things as well. A guy who thinks he's a piece of garbage probably, let's say, tries to keep Shabbos, but he's probably, when push comes to shove, maybe he breaks it. You know, you understand? Like his doing is going to be reflective. So if I see someone who's off in some way in his doing, I mean, he's not holding very high standards, so I know immediately that it's because there's some loss of being in there. There's some negative being there. Because no one would do that unless they, of course, didn't see themselves as special, as holy, as a gift from God, as worthy of love, as worthy of care and trust and all the beautiful things of life. If he's busy doing that kind of stuff, chances are the being's a little off. Well, if the being's off, meaning if he sees himself as a piece of garbage, well, what's going to be my relationship to someone who feels like a piece of garbage? The answer is compassion. I'm to feel deep compassion for him. My likely move with my arm is not going to be to punch him in the nose. It's going to be to put my arm around him and see how I can fan the flames of his being. And you'll notice if you fan the flames of the being of a person, their doing starts to shape up pretty quickly, because if the flames of the beauty inside of every person, which is your neshama, if you fan the flame of the neshama in a person, their doing just like shapes up. You don't even have to bring it up. You don't have to mention doing. All you have to do is fan the flames of the being. What's that? Of the being? Well, love is usually the best. Like real, genuine, authentic love. And you love bomb them and you know, love bomb. You give them a lot of love. And generally what happens once you give them a lot of love is they feel safer. Oh, by the way, when I say love, I shouldn't use the word bomb. Imagine a guy walks in here all strung out, you know, which happens sometimes in this place. You see a guy coming in all strung out. He looks like he doesn't even have pigment in his skin, because his skin's all white because he's probably been on video games and who knows what else. And God knows where that guy's been. But they come in here all strung out like that. And then you come along to love bomb him, what's he going to do? Run. He's going to run. So obviously, when I say love bomb him, you have to channel it in a way that's something he just, at this point, he could probably handle about a trickle, like maybe a shalom aleichem. There was a guy in the mikveh today. He was just sitting there like this in the changing room, got dressed, and it was just, you see that guy? Anyway, so I'm getting dressed, and I'm thinking I could just leave this guy alone, or I could ask him, are you okay? And I chose, are you okay? Those were my words. He looked up and had absolutely no clear recognition on his face that I had even said anything. But I very clearly said, are you okay, to him. And I could see he was English speaking from his shape of his facial muscles. So, anyway, he didn't say anything. He was shaking too. Yeah. Anyway, so little something. Are you okay? A little eye contact. But what happens is if they see you're very careful with them, very careful, and the only thing they're allowing in is like, what's that little hole right there, and you're really careful with the contours of that hole, you'll see the next time you talk to them, it's more like that. If they see you're honoring that, they'll open to that. And when they see that's being honored too, they just, next thing you know, you're giving a hug. And then what happens is there's a lot of trust there. So now there's trust. Once there's trust, they can start opening up. Now I promise you, if the guy opens up and you start talking to him, he's going to tell you some story about how he was drop-kicked by somebody. Someone just, probably his father, maybe it was his mother, maybe it was a teacher, maybe it was a kid. But at some point in life, he was just like, poof. And and I don't mean literally abused, but something happened because I've met people who were raised in nature, homeschooled in the forest, not with Judaism, although the one I met, his mother was Jewish. I've met people.
The guy that's here every day that's like that.
Really?
The guy, yeah, he was raised in right outside Bovendine, and like his family had a little spot with horses in the car.
Nice, nice. What's his first name?
I forgot, but he's a Dov Shuren's grandson, so in that family.
Cool.
A cool family.
Cool. Anyway, I met this kid, and this kid was like so beautiful. He was so beautiful. And he was learning Judaism for his first time here in Jerusalem. Such a beautiful guy. And you want to know something though? He made everyone uncomfortable because he didn't know you're supposed to look away when you talk to somebody. You understand? Like he didn't know about this. That you kind of give people a little space and take your own. I don't know if you guys know this, but you look away when, let's say you're talking like face to face with someone. Notice that you'll both look away. You'll turn your head sometimes and look back. You'll take your eyes away and look back because the eyes are projecting, they're intimacy projectors. They're intimacy projectors, which all the more reason to keep your eyes down, you know, when it's not appropriate to be going for eye contact with certain genders. And because your eyes are intimacy projectors. And anyway, but because he grew up in the forest, he didn't know you have to look away. I had to explain to him, like I'm cool with it, but you're freaking everyone else out, you know, like people are not, like, they were wondering what's your agenda, you know, like look away a little bit. So he actually learned a little bit how to do it so people weren't uncomfortable with him. He did my seminar, he did the Possible Youth Seminar, we're talking 20 years back. Because he was raised so pure, when he learned Judaism, he was at Eshet Torah, he became like a massive Talmid Chacham. Today's a Rav. And yeah, he became a massive Talmid Chacham instantly. Like he moved through our shirim. What was supposed to take 5 years, he was done in 3. He was the star of Eshet Torah, and today he's a Rav somewhere. And anyway, so what happened was that his 3rd year, where he was like, the Eshet Torah cover boy, he did the Possible You. And during the Possible You, I don't want to give you guys too much information in case you're going to come in January, but the point in the Possible You where I suggest, you don't have to do it, but I suggest that if you harmed anyone in your life, that you should probably call them and take responsibility for it. That's all. And what I mean by that, you guys are thinking like harm someone, like stole from them, or like, punched them out, or ripped them off, or embarrassed them, or something. Not what I'm discussing at all. What I'm talking about is that your father, mother reaching out to you in the way they reach out, and you didn't let them.
You're still my daddy.
Yeah. Like you didn't let them reach out. Or your older sibling who was so good at everything he ever did, everything he touched turned to gold, or a younger sibling, even worse, and you just felt like nothing whenever you're with him. So ever since you felt that way, you've been avoiding him. So there's a point where I suggest, you don't have to do it, but I suggest in the seminar that you give him a call. Say, hey, bro, it was the craziest thing that I was too young to realize I did this. But, when I was 6, I was like, wait till I'm 8, I'm going to show him. But the problem is when I was 8, you were 10. And then I was like, wait till I'm 10. I was 10, then you were 12. I'm like, wait till I'm 12. Then you were a bacher, you were 14. Like, I could never catch up. So at a certain point, probably when I was around 11, 12, I just shut my heart to you. And you notice that I haven't said more than one word answers to anything you've ever asked me since we were, now they're in their 30s, since we were kids. I just haven't let you in my life at all. And it just became a pattern, and I never knew how to break out of it, and I'm sorry. I'm sorry, and I love you. And the brother's like, wow. And I've had many stories where the older brother, who this kid thought he didn't need him, you know, and meaning he thought his older brother didn't need him. The first time that I got someone to do this was, you know, going back a lot of years, over 20 years, the older brother burst out sobbing. And he couldn't stop saying, I didn't know what happened. I didn't know what I said. I didn't know what I did. All I knew was my sweetest little brother that I waited so long for, because it was all sisters. And then he had a brother. Like, this older brother had a bunch of sisters. And then he had a little brother. And that little brother was his life. It was his life. And then when his brother turned around 10 years old, he just shut out the light. He just turned off the relationship. Not trying to. He just couldn't feel like he was becoming a man while having such a man in his life. Anyway, the older brother just burst out sobbing. Anyway, those kind of calls. So guess what? The one guy in the seminar who didn't make any of his calls, the one guy in the seminar didn't do it, was this guy. His name's Yair. Yair was the only one who didn't do anything. And I was shocked, because he was like the best student in the room. And I was like, why didn't you do it? So he was like, I'm going to do it, don't worry. Okay. So he comes up to me in yeshiva, where, you know, in Aish, he comes up to me. He says, I bought a ticket. I said, oh yeah, where are you going? He says, I'm going to about 6 different states, including Hawaii. And the reason I didn't do the talks in the seminar is because I'm going now to do them in person with all the people I have ever known. Meaning, because his parents got divorced, so his father was in Hawaii, and then there was a stepmom that was over in Texas, and then this one was in California, in Northern California, in the forest where he grew up. And he actually went and did it in person. Aish was ready to kill me. The guy disappeared for like 3 months. It was planned that he was going to take full responsibility for the way he had decided he was going to survive his life as a kid, with all these people in this family that keeps seeming to split like an atom. You know, he was going to survive that by, you know, making some moves, which were probably independence and stuff, which Baruch Hashem brought him to age probably, and found Torah. But he did all these conversations in person. Why are we even discussing this? I have no idea. Why are we talking about conversation in person? Oh, eye contact. Let's bring it back, and then we'll finish this session. Eye contact. Intimacy. Opening up someone's. Once it's open, then they will open about a story of what they went through, at which point you can say, hey, can we separate the story? Sorry, can we separate what you went through from the story you made it mean about you? That's a deep thing I'm saying. I don't know if you'll be able to. Can we separate the circumstances? Can we separate what happened from the story you let it mean about you? Our interpretation, but it's an interpretation about me. You understand? If I get embarrassed in class because I forgot to zip my zipper, and now I'm back in class, you know, 5th grade or something, you know, 11 years old, and of course someone in the class goes, X, Y, Z, you know, and I'm just like, don't, you know. The circumstances was I forgot to zip my zipper. But the story about me might have been loser. You get that? And then I spend the rest of my life trying to make sure no one ever sees me as a loser. And meanwhile, I'm ignoring my wife, ignoring my kids. Why? So I can keep up the payments on my Range Rover. By being a total workaholic. And now I'm 58 years old. And I'll tell you, if anyone's got their zipper down, it's that guy. And what I mean by that is that he never left the classroom. He's still playing the same story from some stupid forgetting of a zipper one time with one idiot in the classroom who was just making fun. which is what he did. Because what happened to him is he now makes fun. You understand? It's just stories bumping into stories, bumping into stories. But these are just stories that people tell based on circumstances. So let's go back. If you give him some love, right? Little love, he starts to trust because he sees you honor his vessel, how much he can receive. He starts to open it. When he gets it open, he starts to share. Once he starts to share, he starts to tell you some difficult stories. Once he tells you those difficult stories, you can now introduce, well, maybe we ought to separate the circumstance from the story you let it mean about you. And next thing you know, his being starts to spark. It starts to ignite. There's a Hanukkah candle. There's a flame. And there's a little flame there. And then others starting to flame. And there's a bit of a coal. And you can start fanning in the flames until the flame gets bigger and bigger. And next thing you know, he's a tzaddik. Meaning his doing is reflecting the being, because doing always reflects being. Garbage being, like, I'm a loser, is exhausting doing, like trying to make the payments on my Range Rover while ignoring my most important people. But empowered being, which comes from the neshama that's inside all of us, that you fan the flame of a person, the neshama, if that's the being, well, it leads to inspired doing. Now your doing's inspired. And you want to know something? If you have empowered being that leads to inspired doing, guess what? You will never, ever be tired. You mean you're physically tired, you could be, but you will never feel depleted, exhausted again. Meaning every time anyone ever sees you, they'll see you're just mamish, like the most motivated person in the world. Because being leads to doing. And if the being's eternal, which is your being is eternal. If you're connected to the eternal being, and you're able to negate all the stupid stories you've made about yourself over the years, but you just live from being and fan that flame, well, then all you're doing is just coming from the infinite source of motivation, which is the being. And being leads to doing. Well, if your being's empowered, your doing's going to be on fire. Right? If you're on fire, the doing's on fire. And that's why you'll notice some people never tire. Just go ahead.